Dad took my inheritance and said, "You don't deserve it, she needs it more," referring to my sister. I said fine and left. 3 months later, he called me from a motel. I remember standing there, holding the folder with my mother's will still warm from the printer. The air in the living room was thick with quiet tension, like the pause before a thunderstorm breaks. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. But something inside me shifted so hard I felt the ground move. That was the moment I knew. After 32 years of playing the dependable one, the quiet one, the "you're a good son" pats on the back that never meant anything, I finally saw the truth of it all. I was never going to be enough for him. Not compared to her. Melissa, my younger sister by 5 years. The golden child. The single mom with a knack for turning her mistakes into everyone else's problem. The one with the parade of boyfriends who never stuck around, the credit card debt, the sudden need for a little help just this once. She was crying, of course. Sitting on the couch beside him, sniffling into a tissue, her eyeliner running in a way I'd seen too many times. And I knew it before he said it. Before his hand even moved toward her shoulder. "I'm giving her the house," Dad said. "The savings, too." I looked at the old family home. The scuffed wood floors I'd refinished after Mom passed. The plumbing I fixed myself when the basement flooded last winter. The bills I covered when Dad's pension started coming up short. "You've got a job," he added, as if that settled it. "You'll be fine." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or fling the folder across the room. I just nodded once, calmly. Set the will down on the coffee table like it weighed nothing. And I left. I didn't take my coat. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out of that house and into the cold, and I didn't look back. I didn't cry. That surprised me, honestly. I thought I might. I thought the weight of it all, the betrayal, the years of trying, the countless rides to Dad's appointments, the late nights fixing leaky faucets while Melissa was out God knows where, would finally crack me. But nothing came. Just this quiet numbness, like my body knew there was no room left for grief. Just resolve. I crashed on a friend's couch that first night. Brandon, an old college buddy who barely asked questions. He just nodded when I showed up at his door with a backpack and a blank expression. "Long story?" he asked. "Too long," I said. For the first few weeks, I drifted. No plan. No home. No savings, really. What I tucked away over the years had mostly gone toward Dad's medical bills and Melissa's emergencies. I'd loaned them thousands, sometimes just handed it over without question. Rent. Groceries. A car battery once. I used to tell myself I was doing the right thing. The noble thing. But that night when Dad handed my mother's life's work to someone who had done nothing but crash and burn over and over, I realized nobility was just another word for being taken advantage of. So I started over. I picked up freelance work, copywriting, web design, delivery gigs. Anything that paid and kept me moving. Brandon's couch turned into a cot in his garage, and eventually, a tiny room above a sandwich shop that reeked of onions and oil. But it was mine. And I worked. God, I worked like I had something to prove. Melissa didn't call. Not once. Neither did Dad. I guess they figured I'd come around eventually. That I'd get over it. But I didn't. I used that betrayal like fuel. I woke up early. Stayed up late. Sent out pitches. Took extra shifts. Skipped meals to stretch rent. I wasn't just building a new life, I was dragging it, bleeding, out of the dirt. And for the first time in my adult life, I was doing it for me. Funny thing about starting from scratch, you learn fast who you really are. Not the person molded by family expectations or old guilt, but the core version of yourself. The one that's still standing when everything else is gone. I'd thought I was weak for walking away. That maybe I'd regret it. But I didn't. I started sleeping better. My skin cleared up. My thoughts stopped spinning. And though I didn't have much, no fancy car, no savings, no weekends off, I had a strange sense of peace. Until the phone call came. 3 months later. Middle of the night. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. I was already half asleep on my twin mattress, the hum of the fridge filling the room. But something told me to answer. And when I did, it was him. Caleb? His voice cracked like the line was fraying. I didn't recognize it at first. It was hoarse, shallow, like someone who'd been chewing on gravel. But it was unmistakable. My father. Yeah, I said, slowly sitting up. My heart had already started pounding. It's me. There was a pause. Static. Then the rustle of fabric, like he was shifting in bed. I didn't know who else to call, he said. I looked at the screen, 2:08 a.m. I tried Melissa first, he added quickly, as if that made it better. Of course you did. Another pause. Then a coughing fit that lasted nearly 10 seconds. It sounded wet, rough, and honest-to-God painful. I'm not well, he said quietly. She left. Melissa. She took the car. Took the money. I blinked. What do you mean took the money? The savings, he mumbled. All of it. She sold the house. Said she'd handle everything. Said I'd stay with her, and then she just left me here. Where's here? A motel. Off Route 9. Little place next to a gas station. Been here a week. I'm out of cash. Can't walk much. I think my chest is acting up again. That was when it hit me. He was calling me for help. The same man who stood in our living room, looked me dead in the eyes, and said you don't deserve it. The same man who watched me walk out, carrying 30 years of disappointment like a boulder on my back. The same man who gave everything, to Melissa because she had made mistakes, and needed a leg up. And now, here he was. Sick. Broke. Alone. Sitting on the edge of a motel bed that probably reeked of mildew and cigarette ash, begging his last option to come save him. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so sad. I just need somewhere to go, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I've got nothing left. I stared at the ceiling. The tiny water stain over my bed looked like a bird in flight. For a second, I thought of my mother. What she would have said. What she didn't say that day he rewrote her will. And then I remembered his words. You don't deserve it. So I leaned back, pressed the phone a little closer to my ear, and said calmly, clearly, You're right. I don't deserve this. But neither did Mom. I let that sit there. Let him feel it. Let him taste it. He didn't respond right away. I could hear the creak of the bed springs as he shifted, maybe sitting upright, maybe realizing what this really was. I don't have anyone else, he said, voice cracking. I know, I replied. Melissa made sure of that. Just like you made sure I'd never be your first call. There was nothing left to say. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just let him feel the weight of his own words crashing back down on him like a wave. And then I hung up. I sat there for a long time after the call ended. The kind of stillness that feels louder than noise. The motel number still sat in my recent calls like a bruise. I thought about deleting it, but I didn't. I just stared at it. Not out of guilt, no. But because part of me couldn't believe it had finally happened. He'd fallen. Melissa had vanished. The world had turned, and this time, it had left him behind. And I was the last name on a list he'd never wanted to dial. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just lay there, watching shadows drift across the ceiling. The past kept replaying in loops, my hands under the sink fixing his pipes, the groceries I left on the porch during winter, the pills I picked up when he forgot. All of it. Every thankless task. Every, "You're a good son," muttered like it was an afterthought. Every birthday where Melissa got a gift and I got a phone call. They say betrayal doesn't always look like a knife in the back. Sometimes it looks like silence. Like being passed over. Like hearing, "She needs it more," after a lifetime of needing, too, and never asking. But what really haunted me wasn't the betrayal. It was the fact that none of it surprised me. I had always known who I was in our family's story. The background character. The one who didn't get the spotlight, but kept the lights on. So when they finally pushed me out of the frame completely, I didn't fight it. I just walked away. And that, walking away, had been the only moment I truly felt free. Now, 3 months later, the man who handed the keys to my sister like a prize at a carnival was sitting in a motel, sick and alone, calling the son he thought would never stop giving. I thought I might feel pity. But all I felt was clarity. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. Emails. Invoices. A client looking for a logo revision. Life moving on. I sat down, finished my breakfast, and went to work. The world didn't pause for his consequences. He had made his choice. And now, I was making mine. It took a week before the motel stopped calling. At first, it was Dad. Then the front desk. Then some nurse from a nearby urgent care center who asked if I was the emergency contact. I told her calmly that I wasn't. Not anymore. They all said the same thing, in different ways. He's not well. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. He needs you. But no one ever asked what I needed. And isn't that the truth of it all? People like him, like Melissa, they take and take, always with some invisible promise that one day they'll see you. Appreciate you. Make it right. But that day never comes. They just keep reaching out, grabbing at you, trying to convince you that you're cruel for not handing over your last piece. He taught her how to do it. That realization came slowly, like a film lifting from my eyes. Melissa hadn't become this way overnight. She learned it, watched it. She grew up hearing his sighs of disappointment whenever I came home with an A instead of an A. She saw the way he'd shrug when I got promoted, but beam like a lighthouse when she got through a job interview. Even when she dropped out of college. Even when she got pregnant by a guy who ghosted her before the baby was born. She's struggling, he'd say. You're stronger. She just needs more help. But help became expectation. Expectation became entitlement. And somewhere in all that, I disappeared. I think that's what stung the most. Not the money. Not even the house. But the erasure. The way my hard work was invisible until it became convenient. But now I was writing a new script. The apartment above the sandwich shop wasn't much, but it was mine. The freelancing jobs were picking up. I'd landed a retainer client, a small startup in Denver, and they loved my work. I was saving. Slowly. Quietly. And for the first time in a long time, every dollar I earned stayed in my account. And every morning, I woke up without the weight of their needs on my shoulders. I didn't hate him. Not anymore. Hate takes energy. What I felt now was colder. Simpler. Like the door had finally closed and locked behind me. Whatever came next for him, he'd have to face it without me. A few weeks passed. The air turned crisp, leaves fell in heaps on the sidewalks outside my window, and I started noticing the things I'd forgotten to appreciate. Quiet mornings, strong coffee, the sound of my neighbor's dog barking at passing cars. Ordinary peace. That was new. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text. It wasn't from Dad. Or Melissa. It was from Owen. We hadn't spoken in years, not since college, not really. He'd been my best friend before life started taking sharp corners. We'd gone separate ways without much ceremony. He'd married, had a kid, moved to the suburbs. I stayed in the city, grinding it out. Heard about what happened. Melissa's been calling around. Guess she finally noticed you're not coming back. I stared at the screen. I didn't know who she'd been talking to or what version of the story she was spreading, but I didn't care enough to ask. She always knew how to control the narrative. Play the victim. If she was calling Owen, it meant she was getting desperate. I replied. Let her talk. I'm not interested. He texted back a few minutes later. Wanna grab a drink? On me. That night, I met him at an old dive bar we used to haunt in our 20s. It looked exactly the same. Dim lights, cracked leather booths, the same jukebox that hadn't played anything recorded after 1999. Owen raised his glass. To freedom? I smirked. To surviving your own family. We talked for hours. And it wasn't just about the mess. We talked about work, life, how strange it felt to be in our 30s and finally figuring ourselves out. He told me about his daughter, a firecracker of a 7-year-old who had just learned how to insult people in French. At one point, he leaned forward. "I always admired you, you know," he said. "Even when we lost touch. You worked harder than anyone I knew." That hit me harder than I expected. Because I realized I never once heard words like that from my own father. I nodded, suddenly aware of how thirsty I was, not for beer, but for honesty, connection, for someone to see me without strings attached. We paid the bill, stepped outside into the chilly night, and he clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever happens next, you're doing the right thing, man." I walked home with that sentence echoing in my head. You're doing the right thing. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. Just because it was finally time to protect myself. A few days after that night at the bar, I got a voicemail. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I played it anyway. Curiosity's a stubborn thing. "Hi, Caleb. This is the manager at the Foxtail Motel. Your father listed you as an emergency contact." Again. "He's still here. We've been letting him stay, but he's behind on payment. And he's not, well. Just thought you should know." I stood in the kitchen, hand gripping the phone like it might burn through skin. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat on the floor, staring at the wall. I pictured him alone in that dim, cigarette-scented room, eating stale vending machine snacks and wondering where it all went wrong. I wondered if Melissa had even glanced in the rearview mirror when she left. I wondered if he realized yet that choosing her didn't just cost him comfort, it cost him connection. He gave away everything, house, savings, trust, for a version of family that was never real. He thought neediness equaled love. That Melissa's chaos made her more deserving. And me? I was the safe bet. The reliable one. The son who didn't need. The son he could afford to lose. He gambled on the wrong child. But the funny thing is, I don't think he ever saw it as a gamble. I think deep down, he really believed she'd come through for him in the end. That enabling her would earn him loyalty. That favoritism was the same thing as love. That kind of thinking, it rots you from the inside. That night, I grabbed a box from the back of my closet. It was old, dusty, taped shut at the edges. Inside were photos, faded Polaroids, birthday cards, a few yellowing pages from the notebook where Mom used to write grocery lists in looping cursive. There was one photo near the bottom. Me, maybe 6 years old, standing on the porch of that old house in a red sweater, holding a pumpkin nearly as big as my head. Mom's hand is on my shoulder. She's smiling at me, not the camera. It's the kind of smile you don't fake. I ran my fingers over the edge of the photo. That house is gone. The savings are gone. But that moment? That still belongs to me. And that was enough. 3 days later, he called again. This time I answered. "Caleb." His voice was thinner now. Dry. Less gravel, more breathlessness. I said nothing. I just let the silence stretch. Let him feel the weight of it. "I don't know what to do anymore," he said. "I can't walk more than a few feet without wheezing. I haven't eaten since Tuesday. They say they're going to throw me out by the end of the week." I leaned against the doorframe of my apartment. Sunlight was spilling through the window. Warm. Soft. Clean. "Call Melissa," I said flatly. "I can't." "Why not?" There was a pause. I could almost hear him looking for an excuse. Trying to find one that didn't sound as pitiful as the truth. "She blocked me," he finally muttered. "She said I was dead weight." For a split second, my stomach twisted. Not out of sympathy, out of recognition. He had used those words before. "She needs it more. You'll be fine. You don't deserve it." Now he knew what it felt like to be discarded. Not needed. Not worthy of help. "Dad," I said quietly, "do you remember when Mom passed?" There was a silence. Then a soft, "Yeah." "Do you remember what she wanted? What she wrote down in the will?" He didn't respond. But I could feel the tension through the line. He remembered. "She wanted the house split fairly." She made that clear. He still didn't speak. You didn't just go against her, I said. You rewrote the ending of her story. You gave everything away to someone who hadn't earned it, and when I walked away, you didn't even ask why. I thought I was doing what was right, he said, his voice barely audible. She was struggling. We were all struggling. Another silence. I exhaled slowly. My chest felt lighter than it had in years. You made your choices, Dad, I said. And now you're living with them. So you're not coming? No, I said. I'm not. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just let him sit with the truth. Then I added, You once told me I didn't deserve anything. So maybe now, you'll finally understand what that feels like. And then I hung up. He didn't call again. I thought I'd spend the following days second-guessing myself, checking my phone, replaying the conversation in my head. But none of that happened. Instead, I went about my life like I'd closed a chapter. Not slammed it shut, just quietly turned the page. A week passed. Then 2. I never got another voicemail. No motel clerk. No late-night nurse. Just silence. I heard through an old neighbor that Melissa had moved to Florida with a new boyfriend. She sold the house, drained the accounts, and left behind a trail of debts like breadcrumbs. Dad had trusted her to carry the family torch, and she used it to set the whole legacy on fire. There was something painfully poetic about that. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't cheer her downfall. But I also didn't feel sorry. What I felt was distance. It was like watching a movie I'd already seen, one where I knew every line, every betrayal, every excuse before it even came. Meanwhile, life was getting better in small, quiet ways. I'd found a rhythm with work. Picked up 2 more clients. Started saving for a down payment, not on a big house, just a little fixer-upper with a porch and enough space to breathe. I met someone too, a graphic designer named Elise who asked more questions than she answered and never made me feel like I had to earn her attention. Funny how things fall into place when you're no longer bleeding yourself dry to hold someone else's life together. One evening, Elise and I were cooking dinner, chopping vegetables while music played low in the background, and she asked me something simple. Do you ever miss them? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I missed the version of them I thought they were, I said. But not who they turned out to be. She nodded. Said nothing. Just passed me the cutting board. And in that moment I realized. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't holding my breath. I was just living. A month later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, written in my father's uneven handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of motel stationery. I was wrong. I see it now. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know. You were the only one who ever stayed until I pushed you away. No signature. Just that. I folded the letter, set it down, and stared at it for a while. Then I slid it into a drawer, not to keep, not to cherish. Just to remember. Not everything broken needs fixing. Some things need to stay broken, so you don't forget why you walked away. And I did walk away. But not empty. Not bitter. Just free.